Alrighty then. So for this face, what I think is the main issue is that when you, especially if you're working from a reference, it's hard to map out the face if there's a prop on it. So if you think about this face without the prop, which is the hair is the prop in this case. This is why the 14-day challenge, you guys don't use hair. I refuse, like I don't allow you guys to use hair in your images because it's a prop, it's an accessory. And it has nothing to do with facial anatomy. So that's why I want to get rid of it. What happens sometimes when you guys lay like hair or other props or tattoos over your images, it sort of interrupts the anatomy and confuses you and makes you think that if applying the hair here you have to think less about the anatomy. No, that is absolutely wrong. If you guys are applying hair to a face, you have to remember establish the main biology and the main muscle structure and the skeletal structure first. Do not think that just because there's hair covering the eye that you have to work on that eye less, because it'll stick out like a sore thumb when the eyes are not aligned. And let me show you. Oh, it's on color. Why is it on color? Just like this. This corner is over here while this corner is pushed all the way up there. This is an issue. And this is an issue caused by this hair. If this was in your reference, then this person's face is extremely asymmetrical. Um, Another issue is that if the hair is completely black, it'll work as a black, sort of literally like a black hole. What it will do is it will corner and hold hostage all of your values, and it won't let you really establish a buildup and a gradual climb with your soft gray. So if I were to grayscale this image right now, you'll see that that black is the dominant color. And I don't like that in anything, because what happens is that at this point you are no longer depending on your structure and form and your formation of the form. What you're dependent upon is the contrast. You settle for the contrast to to create the face for you, which is not a good sign of a strong artist that has a strong understanding of skill. I mean, a strong skill in their understanding of form. Understanding your form, thinking about something as rotating, all of that stuff helps you build a newfound appreciation for gray values and the soft and the gradual buildup of gray values. So that's something that I want you guys to remember. Do not, one, depend on high contrast. If you ever do another face again, whoever this is, you guys don't really name them. Um, do not depend on high contrast anymore. And if you do have a face that does have a prop in it, please make sure that you are organizing the face as if it is without the hair. So think about the face without the hair first. Can everyone write that down and repeat it to me, because I really want this to be embedded. Think about the anatomy without the hair. So think about the symmetry where that hairline would be. This hairline is a bit low. The symmetry of the eyes, the symmetry of the brows. Are they on the same line? No, everything in this eye is pushed up because this massive hair that fell over top confused you. Yeah, think about the anatomy without the hair, without the props, without anything excessive. And if you have to, draw the face without the hair first. Draw the hair last. This is something that I do as well. I start off with the basic structure of the head. I do a little blob for the head and the face. I throw in the major value blobs for, you know, the core shadow, half the face, and then the eye sockets and the nose. Hair I leave last because hair will interrupt me. It will get in my way. This one painting that I painted, it was the Aphrodite painting. I had a little bit of hair going over one of the eyes, just like this. That little bit of hair tortured me to hell and back, because that confused me. As much as I wanted to see a balance between both eyes, I couldn't, because that large piece was in there, overscaling that one area of the face. So if there was a scale issue wrong with my eye, if one eye was bigger and one eye was smaller, the simple size of the hair on top of that eye would never have let me sense it. I would never have been able to instinctively change the size of that eye. And that eye was at one point too big, and that eye was at one point too small. Let me just show you the image I'm talking about. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. And that's the most important thing to remember, is that if you do want to apply a prop to your portraits, please remember portraits. Did you guys hear it? if you guys do want to apply a prop to your portraits, please remember that if you do apply these props, think about the anatomy first. What comes first in the anatomy? The skeleton comes first before the hair. So the skeleton should be appreciated and measured and quantified before the hair is, okay? So this is the eye I'm talking about. Even now as I see it, this eye is significantly smaller than this eye. You just don't see it because of this massive piece of hair flooding over the entire image. And this scale compared to this scale, this floods over the size of the eye. So I could never really tell unless I hide away the hair, remove the hair or make it an invisible layer, and just deal with the anatomy firsthand. Alright, so that was the main issue with this piece. And now I'm just going to go jump into liquefy and balance it. Another thing you're doing is you're drawing a symbolic eye. Again, I don't know what your reference is, but I know if your reference was real, it would have solid anatomy because it's real. So that's something you have to also identify and read in your references. There's copying your references and then there's reading them. Reading them means that you see the sphere, you see the main shapes, you see the values, you see the core shadow, you see all the basic fundamentals intact, the things that you have to make sure you imitate sharply. If you don't imitate those specific rules, what will happen is that the anatomy will suffer and it will be very obvious that you're drawing a symbolic eye. Also the nose, I've got numerous videos on how to draw a nose. Nearly every single critique video I have, there's a nose problem in one of those. And I usually just reteach how to draw the nose in there. It's really, really basic, and as long as you get that, the basic signifiers of the nose, you won't ever have problems with noses again. I'm just trying to shrink these lips because I oversized them, or enlarged. So the nose here was again symbolic, and the lips were not as symbolic as everything else. You seem to have copied the lips very well, but they did have that overdrawn, sharp, cartoony, almost kind of Jessica Rabbit kind of lip. Again, don't draw symbolically. Depend on the realism. The realism will carry it home, will make your image look realistic, and it will make everything look sharper. More approachable character, more believable character. It's just something that the audience connects with because it looks realistic. It's still guided by the fact that you have a style and maybe you have a bit of cartoony in there. But nonetheless, the fundamental rules that eyes should have a spherical nature to them, that core shadows of the face should not be forgotten, that the nose is a protruding object, that the face is symmetrical, and props are secondary. All of those are fundamental rules that you have forgotten or haven't seen in the making of this painting. Okay. So I'm just thinking about the basic skeleton underneath, how it works, and in a second I'll start painting it. So before, after. So do you guys see how that anatomy changed everything? How just thinking about the skeletal structure and making everything balance back towards a symmetry line. The hair is still confusing me because if I remove the hair, you'll see that the face is slanting in this way. That the symmetry line isn't really going up straight. It's sort of going, if you can see, this is more distant, this is closer, and this is more distant. That sort of causes a problem because it's just everything's trying to show itself through the hair, so you're overcompensating. Yeah, there's hair covering. If there's hair covering something, just by God, cover it. Stop trying to show it. Don't try to like squeeze out as much of the image as possible through the hair or behind the hair. Quantify it. Measure it first. Measure. Make sure everything is symmetrical. And then throw the hair. If the hair is going to be visible, if the eye is going to be visible, it'll be visible. If it's not, it's not. Don't overdo it by bringing the eye in all the way, just so that it can show. Don't do that. Okay, so what I mean by core shadows on the face is, by the way, the blacks used are pure blacks. A face does not have nostrils that are this black. A face does not have eyebrows that are this black, or hair that is this black. Everything is a darker brown that has a red base to it. Hair cannot be pure black. Makes no sense. There's pigmentation, which is why it's a darker color. It isn't pigmented by some sort of natural ink or some sort of octopus ink or something. It's pigmentation. Excessive pigmentation causes brown hair. This red base is still there. If you guys have ever bleached your hair and your hair turns bronzy, that's because there's a red base in your hair. So that redness should never be forgotten. And the fact that it's dark is just more pigmentation. There's more of the color there, more of that red. Releasing less light, and if you put brown hair under the sun, you will see that it is red and it has highlights in it and has a bit of a blonde undertone to it. So hair is never really black. So I'm just trying to throw a coarse shadow over the entire painting. So do you guys see what I mean by the props, how interruptive they can be? If they have a black color, everything has to follow them. If they are taking over the image with the largest scale, everything has to follow. Be careful with the props that you throw over your painting. In a portrait especially, portraits, you just need the face. You don't need much to really carry that face and present the theme or the story behind it. You really don't need to overdo the prop work in order for us to read the image and read the portrait for what it is. Portrait. So all I'm doing is creating a fuzz, which is the skin fuzz. Skin is a fuzzy thing. It's got lots of tiny, like peach fuzz. It's got lots of tiny hairs, and what that does is that it makes light seem a bit more blurred as it travels over the face. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to get that dark brown red tint that I talk about in my How to Paint Skin video, the recent one. And I'm just going to lay it over the main areas that require a coarse shadow. So under the brows, under the nose, and I'll clean it up in a sec, and the corners of the lips. Oopsie. And you have this pretty red color up here in the forehead. I'm just going to use that to bring all these whites down. There's too much white happening. Stylistically, you can keep the black. You can keep it as a very graphic sort of one layer, zero value added to it, just a solid black outline, something like magazine or collage or editorial, something like that. You can go ahead and do that. But everything else, you have to respond to it and compensate by having everything else reflect a level of realism that is necessary. Okay, so I'm just bringing in that dark brown for the nostrils. Okay, and the highlights under the nose. Alright. Just doing all those basic sort of things that'll bring out the realism a little bit of light around the nose bridge, a shadow I mean, just a little bit, because this area was flooded with a lot of shadow. And then I'm just going to get my smudge tool for just to save some time, and I'm just going to give the eyebrows some texture. And eyebrows, they don't just sit there as if you sharpied them in, as if you got a marker and just drew them in. Eyebrows, even if they're really, really thick and look black, they're not actually black, but they look like they're black or have that level of thickness. It's only because there's a lot of hair, and it's all clustered together, and it's creating the illusion of darkness. And it'll still cast shadows. Every one of those tiny little hairs casts a shadow. So you're going to have to remember to apply that shadow. There is a darkness in between the brows, the brow bones. And then back to that whole symbolic drawing, or avoiding drawing an eye symbolically, I'm just going to be placing some highlights on the eyelids. That'll reassert sort of the spherical under, like the foundation shape of the eyeball. Do you see? Just by outlining the lower lid, lower eyelid. Don't forget to draw that, for the love of God, because it'll really take your eye to the next level. Just a couple of little changes in the eye and the butt, and the whole anatomy of the face reads so well. It's just because we're thinking about the core rules and what the core rules promise us. And this beautiful flesh color you had up here, just trust it and use it everywhere else. Don't just use one specific color in one area of the face. If you're going to use it in one area, use it everywhere else. And I'm going to have to get the black around her face and bleed it onto the skin of anything that is receding into the dark. Because that's sort of the only way it'll fit in, is if we bring in some of that black as a halo. And in areas that are sharp, like the bone of the chin, has to stay sharp. Cannot be haloed. Areas that are fleshy are sort of haloed and softened around the edge. Jump into liquify one more time, and then I'll show you guys the before and after. Oops, that's too sharp. So welcome everyone that I haven't welcomed. Sorry, I started a bit late today. I'm very, very sorry I didn't announce it beforehand. Been a bit distracted, unfortunately. I thought I would be back at least an hour before so that I could announce it publicly, and I said maybe I'll just announce it when I get home. And then the beer had to be stuck in the middle of the road. So they could there's 3 bars in our area, one after the other, and every like certain set time of the day there's like massive blue, pure blue, what's it called? Trucks that just take up the entire road. It's only 2 lanes. I don't know how, I don't know why. Coors Blue? Pure Blue? What is it? I'm going to bring some of that black in the eyebrow, and I'm going to place it under the eyelid here. Above the eyelid on the outside. So now she looks like she's squinting. And finally, I'm just going to bring in a little bit of highlight. Yeah, the person isn't here, I don't think, but they've been waiting a while, I believe, for their critique. I'm not really sure. It's been on my Facebook. I'm very sorry. Just a little bit of light. And this red right here, do you see this color? I'm going to use it to outline the entire brow. The entire forehead, just like that. And then I'll fix up and clean what bled over into the hair. And now I'm just going to get a new layer and just add in that flyaway hair. Shrinking my brush as I go because the hairs do cluster. But there's some that are individual that just get thrown out or captured by the wind or static or what have you. Yeah, they'll probably catch it on YouTube. Okay. So I'll show you the before and after. Before, after, before, after. You were drawing symbolically. The symmetry was off. The vertical and horizontal symmetry was off, and I talk about that in some of my videos. The eye was not drawn realistically, it was drawn symbolically. Again, the brows are not symmetrical. The fact that you threw a prop over the hair, over the face, the fact that you threw hair over the face interrupted your anatomy and sort of confused your, like, you know how in Call of Duty or something where you guys can use the satellite to drop a bomb, but then you have that thingy that disturbs it and then all you see is static instead of seeing the actual bomb. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm such an idiot. I saw it in one game. That's basically what happens when you throw what's it called? Damn, it's called like an interrupter? No, it's called like something that causes static so that you don't see the map, the satellite map, so that you don't drop the bomb. Oh, what is it called? God damn. Probably on YouTube, someone will tell me. But that's basically what happens when you throw hair. it interrupts your line of vision, and it gives you an imbalanced sort of uh, approach to the anatomy, and eyeballing becomes nearly impossible. Yeah, after. Now I sort of ignored the light, brought in the soft that I need for the face because the face is a furry thing. And did I just have a brain fart? I think I just had a brain fart. And soft brush is really helpful for rendering skin because of the fact that skin is very, very soft. It is soft to the touch, and we need to reflect that texture. Skin has a texture. I wouldn't change the hair either because again, like I said, you can get away with this as long as you're treating the hair like a prop and not trying to apply any light to it. It's like as soon as you get this and you start doing this with the hair, that's when you fuck with the hair. Because that's when you're telling me, "Oh, I want to add some highlights." That's not going to work because you either go full retard or you don't. Either you go full I don't know what's wrong with me today. Either you go full render or you don't render at all and just leave it as one graphic one graphic shade. That's really all you can do at this point. It's a stylistic choice. It's a design choice to leave the hair one solid shade. Don't shade it. Leave it alone because it'll work. As long as you fix the anatomy and align things back up so you can have the same face happening. Before, the lips that you drew again were like Jessica Rabbit lips. The nose is symbolic. The eyes are symbolic. You draw symbolic features, whoever you are. Get in on some studies. Get in on some studies and some physics and some real anatomy. All right? You are a retard. Still won't ban me. Alright, so I'm going to get to this one in a sec. For this piece, again, symmetry problems and texture problems, and you don't really have a solid sort of foundation for the dark tones, like meaning you don't have a set scale of color and value in that color so that you can get the dark spots settled and that you can actually settle the values. So basically what I'm saying is the values are not settled. You are not settling on a scale or a spectrum through which you will pull out the form, from which you will pull out the form. So first of all, the lips are extremely large. They interrupted the cuteness triangle, which is really necessary if you want to maintain beauty in your image. Okay, and then we have the face structure, which was a bit over blended. Alright, so before, after. Do you see how the eye? Thank you. You guys are horrible. Do you see? Yeah, okay, I was. Alright, okay. Do you see how the eye sort of pushed out of the 3/4 view? So, I mean, it's partially a 3/4 view, partially not. It's not a front view because what's happening is I'm seeing the side of the head. I'm seeing like the side shape of the head, the way you made this little piece go in. So that's a 3/4 view, but like not really 3/4 view. It's still sort of facing. So that's sort of what I had a problem with understanding. The next problem is again, your colors. You need to really set a good scale for the colors. So for the dark spot, I recommend a saturated dark purple blue and use that same purple blue for the rest of the dark spots that are needed in the face. So let's get cracking. I'm going to be rendering a lot, so I really want to get the message across about dark spots. As soon as I get them in place, the face really starts to read, because they are spots that are really essential in our recognition of a face. And what happens when we have them in is that we're establishing not only, again, a value scale, but we're establishing the realism. We're establishing a scale for realism where we know that this is the darkest the face can go and everything else is going to be a build upward. And when I say realism, I mean form. Form is sort of the 3D, the cube. As soon as we have the darks of that cube, we'll know where the lights are, and vice versa. You can start from light to dark or dark to light. It's like the never-ending debate. You can start wherever, as long as you have both. And as long as it's not over-contrasted. I'm sorry if I over-render your image, or soften it up, or get rid of the texture. Be careful of the light around, the shadows around the nose bridge. Sometimes you need very little and it'll bring the message across. Another thing is the shadows, the core shadows that fall from the face, from objects like the cast shadows. So, eyebrows casting light. I need to zoom out. On the face. Eyelids casting their light. She has hooded eyes, so it would be very, very little casting because it's not a deep crease. The eyelids casting light over, casting shadow over the eyeballs. And I choose a saturated blue because everything else is desaturated, so you're going to have to compensate for that lack of saturation. Alright. So I'm just going to jump into Liquify, like I said. Push the eyes inward so that they can be part of the two front pieces of the face, where the two outer pieces are the third and fourth quarters. The two inner pieces are the main quarters. I know, it's really weird how I label them. The next thing I'm going to do is choose a different color for the highlight. If I'm choosing purple for the highlight, I'm going to have to choose like a purple, like a blue-green for the lights on the face, because that's the only way to really reinforce this color palette. So I'm going to bring that blue in very gently over the high points, because I need to match it with the background. At this point, you're really stylistic with the colors. You're really breaking a lot of rules, and it's okay as long as your values are intact. Another thing with this face is the eyes. They're really not... When you have eyes that are not symmetrically circular, it becomes a problem, because what is the thing, and I want you all to answer this, what is the thing that you guys look at when you look at a person? When you guys look at people, what do you see first if you look at them? Booty. Beautiful answer, Jake. Boobs? No. God, this is what my students are made. The eyes. Thank you. The nice little squiggle. Yes, it's the eyes. So whether your viewer is an artist or not, they will notice if the eyes have a problem. If your eyes do not pull the viewer in, meaning if the realism is not intact, it will not pull the viewer in, and so there will be an alienation. The person will not see your image as a human or a humanoid of any kind. What will happen is that it will be very difficult to establish a connection with your viewer. And by the way, that connection is what gets you favorites and what gets you popular. If you do not know how to pull your viewer in with the eyes, then you're sacrificing a great deal. A great relationship that you could have with your viewers and what they expect from your drawings. A believable character that is believable. Believable. And I'll show you in a second where that happens in cinema, a good example of that. Has anyone seen Super 8? That moment when the alien opens its eyes? Yeah, don't look at my emails. You perverts. Okay, so in Super 8, he finally opens his eyes, and the entire image, his eyes were shaded over by this like film or some sort of screen that he had, like a membrane. And at the very end, so that they could humanize him and make him more easily empathize with him, it makes the audience easy to love him and miss him and really create an impact, they made the eyes believable. And what happens is that when they made the eyes humanesque, they gave him the iris and the eye light. We loved him instantly. So this is a drawing of him, actually. This is basically what happens. You see, you got the pupil, you've got the light, very, very human. And that's how it became effective. So this was him before, when he had the film on his eyes, that little membrane. And then after, he became very human. I think this is an example of it. View image. I don't know if you guys can see it, it's horrible, but you see the eyes became very lovable and very human. And that's what you want to do with everything that you're ever going to paint. You want to create that believability. So I have to keep reinforcing the circular, of the spherical shape of the face, of the eyes. I have to keep making sure that I'm not drawing symbolically and that I'm thinking and I'm geared by the realism that is necessary. He also had a very nice booty. Very nice booty, let me tell you. Best booty this side of New York. Or wherever the film was set. I think it was Mississippi or something. Alright. So I'm going to place in that light that happens in eyes. Your eyes seem to be a little bit unfocused, so what I'm going to do is make them look like they're looking at the same object. And the way to do that is just to make the eyes crossed just a little. Don't overdo it. If you overdo it, it will look like a person with crossed eyes. You got to do it gently. Eyeball it. Don't mind the pun. Probably the Midwest. Aliens love them. Or the Midwest loves aliens. Probably because there's so many Satanists there. Joking. Okay. So I'm just trying to make the eyes a little bit more focused. Bloop. Just giving them that Asian-esque separation. Okay. And then what happens with an Asian face, again, you have to work from references, is the hair and the eyebrow is very, very thin. It almost molds or melts in with the shades of the eyes. So at this point you get to really sculpt around the eye. I'm afraid this is the only critique that I can do. I mean, this is the last one. I'll have to get to the others soon because I ran a little bit late today. So now I'm just framing out the face from the sides. And you see what finding the dark spots did? You can go even darker. You can go even darker. Just maintain the blue, though. I'm just going to use the solid brush. Alright, crop circles. And then just dabbing in that brush. Getting my soft brush again and mixing that dark spot shade with the eyelid. Or else she will look like she has no eyelids, which is not a good look. I mean, eyelashes. Oh man, I'm on a roll. Alright, a little bit more work on the nostril. Do you see how the nostril feels like it's protruding now? Because what we've done is that we've created a sense of three-dimensional sort of quality to all the features. We've placed highlights where I tell you guys to place highlights, which is just the points of the face that are like the mountains, the mountain peaks, just the nose, the cheekbones, all of that stuff. And then the chin, and don't forget to establish the fact that the half of the face is always a bit darker because it is a core shadow on the face. So I'm darkening the half of the face. And if the chin is lighter, I will lighten it. I will just not interrupt that core shadow. And I will not lighten it so much that the half of that face is going to be too light after I shade the chin. Do you see the soft brush? What the soft brush does for that skin effect? It's really amazing for that. And if you want to sharpen, and if you want to detail, and if you want to add texture, at this point you can because you know where all your core shadows are. Just to make the eyes a touch more believable, I'm going to bring in that moisture factor, which is easily done just by bringing in some of the color of the eye whites in over top, just like this. And then the waterline, and you can bring in something like a pink. You can go to the RGB sliders, it'll slide you toward the neighboring colors and throw that pink in. for effect. So it's starting to look like one of my stupid portraits. Starting to hate my style like death. But I hope it sort of pushes you in the right direction to find your own style. I'm going to place a little bit of that red on the... you should use HSV sliders instead. Not really. RGB sliders are more accurate. HSV, there's a whole post about it. I can find it and send it to you. RGB sliders, in my opinion, are more trustworthy. And the fact that they reflect the relationship value-wise. And you can easily think about the value, the saturation, and the actual hue, which is the three sort of main components of a color, instead of thinking about them in a digital respect. HSV, I think, is only useful for printing and all of that. It's just a relationship between the printer and Photoshop, but RGB is more accurate towards color theory. I believe that's what the post says. Or CMYK, yeah. Yeah, CMYK is the no, HSV is the same. It's also an issue. Oh, is it? I don't know. I think it was relating between RGB and CMYK. I think that's what that post was talking about. But it was saying that RGB is the most closely related to the color theory and the relationship there. That's what we have here as well. What we have is the same exact thing, is that you think about the placement of that color and where you place that color. When you desaturate one side of the color theory, I guess, the other part dominates. And that sort of gives you a good relationship between the cool colors, analogous colors, and how to translate or how to move gradually toward the warm tones and how to stay in the cool tones. I think it's more accurate that way. And the color picker takes care of hue and saturation, where you have value, saturation, and then the pure hue up here. So I think that's what that post was saying as well. I forget it. I saw it a couple years ago, but I'll send it to you if I find it. So I'll show you the before and after. One last thing is that the face was a little bit long, so I'm just going to push the nose in just like that, and then I guess that little sliver there, I'm going to have to fix it. It's just my personal choice. It was a stylistic choice to start the eyebrows halfway in that painting of mine. I just didn't feel like I needed to define that inner part of the eye. So I'll show you in a second why I did that. So merge down, let me show you the before and after. So before, after. Just finding where your dark spot is really helps you to anchor everything in. And finding those dark spots helps you find the light spots, and then helps you push everything back in towards a solid anatomy. Of course, it doesn't have to look like my image. It can look like something else. But as long as you have the theory in mind, your image, no matter where you take it, will still look realistic, even whatever stylistic choice you have. Alright, so thanks everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.